You're watching E.T.N. Entertainment-related new, entertainment-related discussion. Share and subscribe.
Hey guys, welcome to Entertainment Talk Nation. This is Rob. This video, gotta make sure that unmute button's on, or off I should say. This video, we're going to do a Patreon requested video by Jacob Hofer from the Nation. He made this request quite some time ago, and it took me a while to get to it, but I'm actually very happy I got it done. His request was, how would you make Godzilla 2? In other words, if you know what, I don't even need these. I don't know why I have them on. So in other words, how would I make the movie, the story, etc., etc.? And I actually recorded this earlier today, and unfortunately, I had to start from scratch because, as I said in my other video, I had audio going while I was recording, so you can hear all the audio in the background. It was kind of sucked, but in a way, I'm kind of glad I had to do it again because I made some refinements to my notes because my notes were, I found, were more based on the characters and the monsters, and this is completely monster heavy. There is no characterization here. Maybe there's a brief mention of the head of Monarch, which I had listed as Charles Dance, but if you're looking for any character development or how I would see the characters, how I would do them, it's not taking place here. This is a monster heavy interpretation. So I'm going to read to you because I literally wrote it down. I'm just going to read it to you exactly what I wrote. Before we get into that though, I want to mention that beginning with this video, the Godzilla giveaway will be taking effect. This is a giveaway I've been talking about, and it's obviously was delayed because of I got sick and then I had the whole tooth thing and all that stuff. So I wanted to make sure I get this started before I go back to the dentist on Thursday. There's two Godzilla Funko Pop giveaways. One is a regular Godzilla Funko Pop. Another one is a glow-in-the-dark. And the Godzilla Funko Pop, the normal one, is for everyone on the channel. You do not have to be a Patreon subscriber to be eligible to put your name in for this one. And then there's the glow-in-the-dark, which is patrons only. And basically, the requirement is any Godzilla video I make over the course of the next, I don't know, let's say 3 to 4 weeks, over, let's say the month of May, the whole month of May. Any Godzilla video I make for the month of May, all you have to do is A, be a subscriber, and B, comment on the video. And that's how you enter. Basically, whatever names I see, there'll never be duplicates. So if I see your name once, I'll just pop it in. So, but once I see your name and I see that you're subscribed, then I will put your name into a drawing. It'll be like a hat, and we're actually going to do the drawing on a live stream so people can actually see how it plays out. There's no guessing. There's no, hey, how did he come up with the winner? We'll have a live stream. I'll pull the two names out of the hat. There'll be the Patreon list for people who aren't our Patreons, and then there'll be the overall list. If you're a Patreon member, you have an opportunity to win twice. But if you're an overall subscriber, you have an opportunity to at least win one of the two rewards. So that's starting this video. So just comment in the comment section. Make sure you're subscribed because I can check that. And then we'll go from there. And hopefully, you know, well, not hopefully, but definitely before the end of the month, we'll have a live stream where we'll announce the winner and then send you your reward. Awesome. So let's get started. So how would I do Godzilla 2? What would my story be? How would I do it? Well, this is only partial because, as I said, this is all about the monsters, my story. I don't go into any characterization. It would make it excessively long, but I basically give the story of the monsters, where this movie takes place from the last movie, how events happen, how the monsters come to be. Now, remember, this is not movie related, none of this. So if I mention something in my story, you know, don't come out and say, well, from what I read, it's not going to happen that way in the movie. That's because this is not anything related to the movie. This is what my vision would be if I had been in charge. That was what the request was, so that's what I did. And one final thing I want to mention is that towards the end, it's a little out of place because there were some details regarding the monsters and their nature and their composition and the science behind them that I meant to put in throughout the story. And as I got towards the end, I forgot to put it in, so I kind of take this one paragraph where I go off explaining certain things regarding the monsters. So, all right, so here we go. The movie takes place 5 years later. My Godzilla story, like I said, which is monster based only, movie related. This would be my sequel. Monarch continues to track Godzilla. The head of the Monarch, which I have, this is the only character listed, which I have as Charles Dance, is the only one aware of the discovery of Kong and the location of Skull Island amongst the people we already know about from the Kong Skull Island movie. No other Monarch rep outside of those in the know, like, you know, whatever characters were, you know, Tom Hiddleston's character and Brie Larson, so on and so forth. Outside of them, you know, we know they already know. So I'm referring to other representatives within Monarch are not aware, and he's keeping the information from the government. The cave painting at the end of Skull Island led the head of Monarch to locate the monsters, and over the years, secret expeditions around the world eventually led to the discovery of Rodan, a new undiscovered island with an unknown tribe which guard and worship an ancient egg believed to be a fossil, and Ghidorah. Dr. Serizawa and Dr. Graham continued to accompany the military as they tracked Godzilla to a resting place where he has been slumbering since the end of his war with Demuto. So basically, they followed Godzilla since the end of the last movie, and then once he finally stopped and rested, they basically are stationed there to study him and stuff like that. Stationed over the Mariana Trench off the coast of East Asia, Graham and Serizawa continued to study Godzilla. A Monarch research team continues to study their discovery of Rodan as they have slowly excavated within Denali, also known as Mount McKinley in Alaska, triggering more explosives to get closer to the creature. They go too far and awaken Rodan as he begins to wreak havoc on their underground research facility and flies off into the air at an extreme speed, which is his base speed. Like, we know that he can go faster than supersonic, but even at his base speed, he's extremely fast. Rodan contains a natural ability that cloaks him from modern-day radar. Now, this is just something that he's always had. There's no knowing that it would have any effect on radar, but in essence, that's what happens. He shares an insatiable hunger for nuclear energy and is much larger than the flying Muto from the first movie. Back at the Mariana Trench, seismic activity begins to intensify when it is discovered that Godzilla has awoken and is swiftly on the move back towards the west coast of the United States. As the military follow him, they begin to hear screeching in the air and witness a large creature flying southeast along the coast of the United States and Mexico. And they notice Godzilla is following the flight pattern. Rodan makes landfall in Port St. Lucie, Florida, where he begins to destroy the power plant in an attempt to feed off its energy. Godzilla soon after makes landfall, leaving the military in the dust. He basically just outswam them. The two monsters fight to a stalemate as both naturally absorb the energy as they battle. Rodan flies north as Godzilla stays on land and follows. Now, a lot of people say Port St. Lucie, Florida. Well, if you look at the map and nuclear power plants located across the country, the main power plants will show up on the map. Most of them are from Texas going east. Then there's smaller power plants, and there's actually one located in St. Lucie, Florida. The reason I chose that is because we've already been on the West Coast, and Florida just gets off easy all the time, so I chose Florida. This leads the United States military to take action as they fear that the hunger of nuclear energy will lead Rodan to attack any nuclear-related location, and not only power plants, but also nuclear missile silos. They launch a full-scale assault on Rodan and Godzilla out of fear that the creatures fighting over nuclear locations could lead to more meltdowns and nuclear fallout across the land. And that power plant in Florida was a meltdown, so that was big destruction. Through his travel, Godzilla begins to meet resistance. This time he's traveling on foot heading north from the military, ignoring them most of the way. Godzilla then, for the first time, shows hostility towards humanity as he destroys a military fortification of tanks, anti-air missiles, low-altitude fighters, etc. He then detours towards the water and continues his pursuit. Well, there's a lot of motorcycle. I don't know if you guys heard that. He then detours towards the water and continues his pursuit of Rodan north along the eastern seaboard. So he was heading north towards land. He was being slowed down by the military. He destroyed what was supposed to be a blockade and figured he'll have an easier time in the water. On Easter Island, that's what I'm calling it, but on the island, Mothra's Island, or for lack of a better term, over the years, the Monarch research team gained enough trust from the local tribe to allow them to study and learn about the ancient egg in exchange for food and some education and learning how to speak. However, their studies only find that the egg to be a fossil, not eggs, just one egg, and believe that the creature in the cave painting could be somewhere else, meaning Mothra. Shortly thereafter, the egg begins to show signs of radioactive activity for the first time ever since Monarch's been there. The tribe, believing it is time for Mothra to awaken as as a threat comes upon the world. This is the response to Ghidorah, who naturally awakens due to the activity of Godzilla and Rodan. It is believed now that all the creatures are somehow linked, much like the Muto, and that the same pattern the Muto used to communicate, the very same one that Godzilla intercepted, is something they all share to some degree. This is what enables Godzilla to hunt, this is what enables Rodan to avoid pursuit, and this is also what awakens Mothra. Back on Easter Island, again, that's just a placeholder, while the tribe communicates to the scientists that their ritual will awaken Mothra, the scientists find evidence that the radioactive activity coming from the egg is actually a self-incubation of the egg, so to help it hatch. They deduce that the egg will crack and open in a couple of days. Meanwhile, it takes one day for Ghidorah to escape his icy prison due to his sheer size and the weight of the ice. This leaving enough time for the Monarch crew that was there to escape and warn the proper channels. So I'm basically keeping Ghidorah in Antarctica, or a frozen region of the planet. Once Ghidorah escapes, he makes for the sky, only showing a short glimpse of himself. Over the course of the next few days, people begin to report witnessing sudden darkness in many locations, large shadows casted over certain areas of multiple cities, thunder and yellow lightning being witnessed, with the lightning showing destructive power and often striking in the same spot multiple times. They also report hearing a foreboding, high-pitched ringing in the air during these witness accounts. So as I said in some of my prior videos, this is how I would introduce Ghidorah. You wouldn't necessarily see him. You would know his presence. You would get a sense of the dreadness, the scariness of him being present in an area. The lightning blast, that signature, and this is the Showa Ghidorah I'm talking about in terms of that signature hum he makes. Not when he roars. It's just like a ringing hum he makes when he flies around. Something very much like that. Okay, yeah, so I just want to pick up where I left off. With the lightning showing destructive power and high-pitched ringing in the air during these witness accounts. Okay, back on the island, Mothra finally hatches out of the egg larva form. Immediately, the monster begins to head to the northeast of the United States, making landfall in Boston, Massachusetts. Gotta put my city in there. But I also heard they're filming the real movie there too, so that kind of works. It actually avoids causing any major destruction as it begins to scale the top of the Zachem Bridge and cocoon itself. Zachem Bridge is a real bridge in Boston. It's a very pretty bridge, and it has 2 peaks. Look it up on Google, and there's pictures all over of it if you want to get an idea. Finally in Boston, excuse me, hold on. Yeah, I almost skipped the whole paragraph, my bad. Meanwhile, Godzilla and Rodan have caused nearly repairless destruction along the eastern seaboard, causing 3 more nuclear power plant meltdowns and forcing the United States military to launch all eastern nuclear missiles harmlessly into orbit. However, at the same time that Ghidorah woke up and escaped his prison, both monsters ceased to fight and began heading north, Godzilla on water and Rodan in the air. Finally, in Boston, a slow storm begins to come in during the day, nearly turning the sunny sky dark as night in certain spots. And a yellow lightning storm begins to destroy the city as a high-pitched hum comes over the city. Finally, a plume of smoke and cloud dissipates as Ghidorah for the first time makes landfall just after Mothra breaks out of her cocoon. Let me go scroll down a little bit. With the activity from the egg all right, so this is where I kind of do a little bit of my scientific explaining the best I can. This is all just, I shot this out just a little while ago, so I did a little bit of research in terms of locations and stuff like that. But like I said, I just kind of shot these ideas out on paper a little while ago. With the activity from the egg and samples taken from the scientists, those samples begin to show some sort of life and shed some light on the Mothra monster, her composition and her nature. It is discovered that somehow, and not even a scientific theory can explain, but when certain cells and chromosomes of Mothra are killed, they are reborn in a concussive shell on a molecular level, meaning that Mothra has an ash of the phoenix effect, I put that in quotations, and that there is only ever one in her species that just rebirths itself when dead, back into a fetal egg form, which is indestructible and dormant. They also discover that these monsters have had numerous wars times before, which would explain why Rodan and Godzilla recognized that both Mothra and Ghidorah were present, and that an ancient battle must resume. This is assuming it's all being explained by Dr. Serizawa, which he would probably do a much better job than me. It is discovered that Ghidorah is living proof of life on a molecular level existing in space, as specimens and samples from the monster show signs of elements and minerals only found in space, which explain his carapace and golden shade and tone of his outer scales with an ashy belly, like almost like a grayish ashy belly. I kind of changed his colors a little bit. They also conclude that he has a very aggressive and destructive nature, and that the other three monsters are the only ones that have prevented him from deliberately destroying the world, as it is discovered that Ghidorah's reign of destruction is what actually caused the extinction of the dinosaurs. This is further proven by the countless destruction that he caused over the last few days since he's awoken, which includes complete destruction of several cities across the world and death of millions. These are just other areas of the story that I wanted to go into more detail, but it was really starting to turn into a book. And this is the section of what I've written that I kind of wanted to spread out in the story as I introduced the monsters, and I completely forgot, so I put it all in one paragraph. So I know it was a mouthful. After a cat and mouse game between Ghidorah and Mothra, which ends with Mothra grounding Ghidorah with her silk webbing and a dispersed poison from her wings, which causes temporary neural damage to Ghidorah, preventing him from taking flight for a while. Mothra gets blasted by Ghidorah's destructive beam, which temporarily knocks her out. At which point, Rodan flies in and begins aerial dive assaults on the grounded Ghidorah, which means basically like diving down, attacking, pecking, scratching, whatever. Finally, as Rodan flies in for another attack, one of Ghidorah's heads grab Rodan by the wing and pin him to the floor. Ghidorah is about to do a point-blank beam blast to the face, and just when he's about to fire, a loud roar is heard behind him as Godzilla has arrived. Leaving the injured Rodan on the floor, Ghidorah and Godzilla begin to walk toward one another slowly. As they get closer, Ghidorah for the first time stands tall, almost sizing up Godzilla, showing his sheer size and wingspan. He unleashes his 3 beams at Godzilla, who responds quickly with his atomic breath as the 2 attacks offset each other. Godzilla then charges Ghidorah and grabs each head with each of his hands while biting the center head. He then pushes off of Ghidorah, and during this turn, like he kind of does a push off, and during this turn, I lost where I was. Okay, here. And during this turn, does a lethal tail swipe against all 3 heads, knocking the monster to the ground. Ghidorah at this point gets up in low flight and tackles Godzilla, holding him in place with his wings, wrapping his 2 outer heads around Godzilla's back for leverage, while taking quick bite swipes like a snake to Godzilla's neck, causing bleeding. Godzilla's back begins to light up as he blows out, but then quickly sucks back in some atomic breath, causing an atomic discharge along his body, which releases him from Ghidorah's grasp, causing severe damage. Nuclear pulse, or atomic pulse. Ghidorah regains his ability to fly and grabs Godzilla and takes flight, flying straight up into the air in this portion, attempting to drop Godzilla from an enormous height, which would kill him. Ghidorah succeeds, and Godzilla is falling at a high speed when Rodan can be seen flying underneath Godzilla, and Mothra flying above Godzilla, grabbing Godzilla by the dorsal fins, while lightly Rodan flies up against... Rodan flies up with his back under Godzilla. So, like, because Godzilla's so heavy, neither one of them could... I wish I could have explained this better, because now that I'm reading it, it doesn't sound as good. But basically, they kind of make a Godzilla sandwich, both picking up the slack and the weight, holding, Mothra using all her multiple legs to hold Godzilla by the dorsal fins, while Rodan uses his back as leverage, so they both can kind of pick up the slack of his weight. And then finally coming to a safe landing, Ghidorah lands as all three monsters face Ghidorah, and they size each other up. This is like the Avengers moment for the monsters. Ghidorah begins to fire beams as the two flying creatures dodge, and Godzilla mitigates the beams with his own atomic breath. Mothra positions herself behind Ghidorah and begins to silk his two outer heads. Rodan at this point begins another aerial assault of strikes, while Godzilla begins to basically tank Ghidorah. Basically, he's in front of Ghidorah doing what he does. In a last desperate attempt, Ghidorah unleashes a powerful blast of energy from his body, which knocks back Godzilla, tears off the wing of Rodan as he falls to his eventual death. So Rodan does die in my story. Sorry, guys. Ghidorah then turns his attention to Mothra, and both outer heads grab her by the neck as the center head charges up a beam, and the two heads also begin to charge up a beam, and all three unleash a devastating blow which destroys Mothra, who crash lands hard on the ground, headless. In that instant, she turns into a golden ash which raises into the sky as it disappears. Ghidorah then turns to finish Godzilla, who's gravely wounded. Ghidorah begins to beat on Godzilla with a series of headbutts from his multiple heads, bites, and finally Godzilla stands groggy and beaten. Ghidorah stands tall, looking down on Godzilla as he charges another beam attack. He blasts Godzilla in the chest, sending him down for what looks like the final time. Ghidorah stands tall and roars to the sky while firing off beams of lightning into the sky. Just as this is happening, a large red beam blasts off the center head of Ghidorah, and Ghidorah falls to the ground. Godzilla gets up with a loud roar, red eyes, and his back on fire. Ghidorah gets up, staggering, this time as Godzilla sends another blast, taking out a second head, and that beam goes through the head and also takes out the tail behind it. Godzilla then tackles Ghidorah to the ground and begins to charge up what looks like to be a large final blast directly into Ghidorah's chest. But then Ghidorah escapes Godzilla's clutches, flying from out under him, tripping Godzilla to the floor and flies straight into the air. Godzilla looks around the battlefield exhausted and goes into the water and swims off. Rodan's body is harvested for scientific study. And back on the island, the ashes that flew into the air are slowly falling to where the egg once was, as we pan down and see two twin tribeswomen humming a song as they seem to be guiding the ashes into what becomes another egg. Finally, we go into orbit as we see a broken and battered Ghidorah fly off into space and land on the moon, begin to burrow into the dirt of the moon, and a sudden glow begins to manifest on all areas that were injured. The end. And that's my story. So that's my version. I definitely, since it's my version, of course, I went a little bit out there because, even though you guys think, I mean, yes, I love the Legendary series, but you know, I know a lot of you guys think that I'm too much on the whole realistic thing, but honestly, if it was my movie, yeah, I would put some of that stuff in there. I know the craziest cheesy part is when they kind of catch Godzilla falling, and I was like, but still, man, that's just you know, that's my story. That's it. So, Jacob, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you guys ever want me to do stuff like this again, I don't mind. Like I like storytelling. I never really think to take, like, if somebody gives me an idea or somebody tells me, hey, can you make a story like this? Then I can do it. But other than that, I don't really tend to think about it, so I don't do it. But if you guys like the story and it's something you might want to see me do sometime in the future, let me know. Make a request, and maybe we'll do something like that. I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun writing it. I thought it was okay. You know, hopefully you guys like it. But anyway, and it was actually 15 minutes shorter than the original one I recorded, which was 40 minutes. So, hope you guys enjoyed it. This is Rob signing off for E.T.N, where we don't do news, we just talk entertainment. Take it easy.
Thank you for watching E.T.N. Click here to watch more content. Or you can click here to become an E.T.N patron. Don't forget to leave a comment. Also, make sure you like and share this video. If you want to know when the next video is up, click the notification bell next to the subscribe button. And most of all, make sure to click that subscribe button for regular content.